No matter what program you're working, or if you're not working a program, you have got to realize that alcohol is not the problem, it's the wrong solution. Figure out what trauma, drama, and chaos you've got going on in there. You move forward in life without dragging it with you. You don't bleed on people that didn't cut you. You don't blame the next guy for what the last guy did. This is how we do that. Welcome back to Starve the Demon, Recovery by Any Means Necessary. I'm your host, Jenna. Tonight, we're continuing our Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book study with Step 5 and the Spiritual Principle of Integrity. We're going to begin in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Chapter 6, Into Action. That's on page 72. And then we're going to go to the 12 and 12 and read about Step 5 in there. I'd appreciate if you'd like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need it. So far, we have covered honesty, hope, faith, and courage. You put all those things together and guess what you get? Integrity. Whatever's on your step 4, it can't hurt you. It's already happened. What are you going to do with it? You're just going to sit in it, all this trauma and drama and chaos that you've brought up from your past? No, we're going to tell it, because what you don't want to do is pull it up, wallow in it, and be miserable because, oh my God, all this stuff that I was numbing with drugs and alcohol, now I got to face it sober. What do I do? This is what you do. We're going to do this like I'm talking to a sponsee. I'm going to read the chapter, give you my experience. Hopefully that gives you some strength and hope. So, Chapter 6, Into Action, page 72. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now, these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. So if you have made it this far, congratulations, you're on step 5. Yay! And remember, there is no chapter called Sitting on Your Ass. That's on purpose. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We're always the last to know. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient because, it's so easy to lie to ourselves. We lie to everybody else and think that they're believing our bullshit, which really they stop believing us and just start and us long before we figure out what's wrong with us. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further than that solitary self-appraisal. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Vital means necessary for living. And I like how it says we may not overcome drinking. Some people don't work the steps and they stay sober without them. Other people work every step, check all the boxes, and go burn their life to the ground. That doesn't mean that you will. It means that you might. That's why we say the word may. It's a big may. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension that makes for more drinking. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance for recovery. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. I'm just going to touch on that for a minute. If you can't trust your sponsor with your fifth step, find a new sponsor. You don't got to tell everything to everybody, but you should have one person you can tell everything to. The point is to get it off your chest. Remember, we talked about everything that's on your fourth step is like a rock in the backpack and it's weighing you down and you're filtering everything in your life through that. When you sit down with your sponsor and you invite God into that and you tell it, you're taking a rock out of your backpack and you're setting it down so you can walk away from it. It doesn't have to be a sponsor. You may not be a 12-stepper. I don't care what program you're working. Confession is good for the soul. You have got to realize that alcohol is not the problem. It's the wrong solution. So you figure out what the problems are, figure out what trauma, drama, and chaos you've got going on in there. You face it. You walk away from it. You move forward in life without dragging it with you. You don't bleed on people that didn't cut you. You don't blame the next guy for what the last guy did. This is how we do that. If we cannot, or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintances for a closed mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family. But we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Now, we're going to talk a lot about that in step 8 and 9, making amends, and how we don't confess things just to make ourselves feel better to the person that it's going to destroy by hearing the information. The other thing I want to talk about, it says unaffected. You want to find somebody that you can tell it to, not that they can't repeat your stuff, but that they won't. Has to be somebody you can trust. Go out for coffee with them. See how they talk to the waiter. See if they're talking shit about other people. See if they're gossiping. See if they're telling you all about somebody that you don't even know, but all of a sudden you know all their business. Because you know, if they talk about them, they will talk about you. If your sponsor is not living the life that you want for yourself, find a new sponsor. You have to protect yourself. Because look, we're all sick and suffering. Those people sitting next to you in that room, they're sick and suffering too. God bless them. I hope everybody gets it. I hope everybody figures it out and solves all their problems and gets to live happy, joyous, and free. Everybody's in different places in their recovery. They might have a lot of time in their recovery, but that doesn't mean they have a lot of recovery in their time. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness, willingness to go through with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we're driving at, that he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. If we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past, once we have taken this step withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skipped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? If we can answer to our satisfaction, then we look at step 6. Have we done it fearless and thoroughly up until this point? Is there anything that we have left out? Is there something we need to divulge? Is there some piece to the puzzle that we're missing? By the time I got to my 5th step, my sponsor already knew everything. She didn't just tell me, go to your 4th step, and me come hand it to her, and she go, oh no, that's wrong. Do it again. Yeah, that drives me nuts. She went through it with me, column by column. So by the time I got to the 5th step and telling it, she'd pretty much heard everything already anyways. She and I met, we did the 5th step, no big surprises there. I went back home and I took my book and I read through steps 1 through 4, checked to see, did I miss anything? Was there anything that I need to still tell? As I sat there doing that, when I tell you, I felt the presence of God. That is when I really, truly started to feel my higher power. So when it says that you go from understanding spiritual principles to actually having spiritual experience, that was very true for me. Some people, that spiritual experience, it comes slow and over time. Sometimes we don't recognize it at first. When we're looking back, that's when we go, oh, that's what that was. That was God all day. I'll tell you, the 5th step was it for me. That's when I really knew, okay, all right, this is something, it's working this time. I was 45 years old when I finally did this for real. I didn't start drinking at 44. It took me a long time, a lot of years. I'm telling you, decades. And I come from a long line of drug addicts, alcoholics, sex offenders, and psychic vampires. I've spent my lifetime fighting this disease, fighting this demon. And it wasn't until I was 45 years old and I put all my bullshit aside and I was trying not to die and I was trying not to go back to prison that I actually fearlessly, thoroughly got into this book, did what my sponsor said, worked these steps to the best of my ability, and literally saw a change happening in my life. So that's my experience. And I hope that gives some of you some strength and hope and encourages you, don't give up. Listen, fearless and thorough. Honesty is the first spiritual principle for a reason. Because if you're not honest, it all falls apart. That is the cement of your arch. Honesty, trust, faith, and courage. It takes courage to do the 4th step. It really does. A lot of people are scared of the 4th step because they're scared of the 5th step. They're scared of the 8th step because they're scared of the 9th step. You're not scared of writing it down. You're scared of telling it to somebody. confessing it. What are they going to think? Oh, I can't tell anybody. They'll never understand, which is why I tell them myself. I say, listen, let me tell you about some things I've been through. And it really does make them go, really? Okay, well, shoot. Well, then I guess I can tell you my thing. I have had the benefit, I'm going to call it a benefit and a blessing, to have gone through some really dark shit in my life. What that did was give me the ability to help other people and let them know that stuff that you think is dark, I've either been right there with you or my stuff is darker. And I'm not like, oh, I'm worse than you are. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you can be comfortable telling me. You can know that I'm going to understand. When I'm sitting down with my sponsee or a client or anybody, it's me and you. Whatever else is going on in the world is irrelevant right now. This time, this is for me and you and your higher power. That's what this is for. It's not about saving your face. It's about saving your ass. We're not done because we've got the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. I like to read out both of them. So I'm gonna, because it's my show. We're on page 55. Step 5, admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. The exact nature of your wrong isn't that you stole $20. It's that you were a thief and a liar. Listen, I used to be a hell of a liar. Now I'm honest to a fault. I try really hard to be the exact opposite of the horrible asshole that I used to be when I was drinking. All of AA's 12 steps ask us to go contrary to our natural desires. They all deflate our egos. When it comes to ego deflation, few steps are harder to take than 5. But scarcely any step is more necessary to long-time sobriety and peace of mind than this one. AA experience has taught us that we cannot live alone with our pressing problems and the character defects which cause or aggravate them. If we have swept the searchlight of step 4 back and forth over our careers, and it has revealed in stark relief those experiences we'd rather not remember, if we have come to know how wrong thinking and actions have hurt us and others, then the need to quit living by ourselves with those tormenting ghosts of yesterday gets more urgent than ever. So intense, though, is our fear and reluctance to do this that many AAs at first try to bypass step 5. We search for an easier way, which usually consists of the general and fairly painless admission that when drinking, we were sometimes bad actors. Then, for good measure, we add dramatic descriptions of that part of our drinking behavior, which our friends probably knew about anyhow. We're not telling you something you didn't already know. But of the things which really bother and burn us, we say nothing. Certain distressing or humiliating memories, we tell ourselves, ought not to be shared with anyone. These will remain our secret. Not a soul must ever know. We hope they'll go to the grave with us. You're going to die with the lie. Nobody needs to know. Nobody's going to understand. I'm going to get judged, blah, blah, blah. Yet if AA's experience means anything at all, this is not only unwise, but is actually a perilous resolve. Few muddled attitudes have caused as much trouble than holding back on step 5. Some people are unable to stay sober at all. Others will relapse periodically until they really clean house. Even AA old-timers, sober for years, often pay dearly for skipping this step. They will tell how they tried to carry the load alone, how much they suffered in irritability, anxiety, remorse, and depression, and how, unconsciously seeking relief, they would sometimes accuse even the best friend of the very character defects they themselves were trying to conceal. They always discovered that relief never came from confessing the sins of other people. Everybody has to confess his own. Nobody can do this step for you. Nobody can heal for you. Nobody can have your spiritual experience for you. And anybody that's taken any kind of therapy or psychology or just lived more than a day on this planet, we project. Nobody's got more locks than a thief. Because a thief just believes that everybody is out in the world thinking about stealing other people's stuff because that's how they think. People that steady are manipulating other people live in fear of being manipulated. Always think somebody's up to something. There's always an ulterior motive. Liars think everybody's lying. It's just how it is. That is the human condition. Now, this practice of admitting one's defects to another person is, of course, very ancient. It has been validated in every century, and it characterizes the lives of all spiritually centered and truly religious people. But today, religion is by no means the sole advocate of this saving principle. Psychiatrists and psychologists point out the deep need every human being has for practical insight and knowledge of his own personality flaws and for a discussion of them with an understanding and trustworthy person. So far as alcoholics are concerned, AA would go even further. Most of us would declare that without a fearless admission of our defects to another human being, we could not stay sober. It seems plain that the grace of God will not enter to expel our destructive obsessions until we are willing to try this. What are we likely to receive from step 5? For one thing, we shall get rid of that terrible sense of isolation we've always had. When you talk to a sponsor and you tell it, and they look at you not with judgment, but with understanding and compassion and go, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, let me tell you about mine. You realize that you are not alone. You are no more unique and special than anybody else. Whatever you have gone through, so have other people. Other people might have got through it and know something you don't. I will tell you from my own personal experience and from experience working with people in treatment, when we get some young therapist straight out of college, doesn't have a lot of life experience, has a lot of good book learning, the clients are not as open. They're very skeptical. When they sit down with somebody that's got a little long in the tooth, and especially somebody that's in recovery, the results are so much better. I'll tell you, because like with me, the rehabs that made any difference to me were the ones where the people that were there to help me were in recovery. Because I would sit down with people, therapists, whatever, that were not themselves in recovery. It wasn't that I didn't believe what they were saying. I believe you know what you're talking about. I believe that you did well in college. It's not that I don't believe you know what you're talking about. I'm not comfortable believing that you're going to understand what I'm talking about. If you've never been trapped in the blinds, you've never been carpet surfing, you've never been hiding under the covers with no emotion left but fear, I don't know that I really am going to open up everything to you because I don't feel safe. Almost without exception, alcoholics are tortured by loneliness. Even before our drinking got bad and people began to cut us off, nearly all of us suffered the feeling that we didn't quite belong. Either we were shy and dared not draw near others, or we were apt to be so noisy, craving attention and companionship, but never getting it, at least to our way of thinking. There was always that mysterious barrier we could neither surmount nor understand. It was as if we were actors on a stage, suddenly realizing that we did not know a single line of our parts. That's one reason we loved alcohol too well. It did let us act extemporaneously. But even Bacchus boomeranged on us. We were finally struck down and left in terrified loneliness. Bacchus is a demon. Y'all starve the demon? That's the demon. And it turns its back on you. Guess what? Alcohol's not the problem. It is the wrong solution. Too many of us, we didn't have any friends till we started drinking and using. We weren't comfortable talking to people till we were drinking and using. And we suffer from look at me, but don't see me. I need to be the center of attention. I have no self-esteem, so my ego is out the roof. I need everybody to look at me. I need attention. I need to feel like I'm not all alone and isolated and a tiny little somebody. But I need you to see what I'm presenting to you. I need you to see my representative, because if you knew the real me, you wouldn't like me. When we reached AA, and for the first time in our lives, stood among people who seemed to understand, the sense of belonging was tremendously exciting. We thought the isolation problem had been solved, but we soon discovered that while we weren't alone anymore in a social sense, we still suffered many of the old pangs of anxious apartness. Until we had talked with complete candor of our conflicts and had listened to someone else do the same thing, we still didn't belong. Step 5 was the answer. It was the beginning of true kinship with man and God. This vital step was also the means by which we began to get the feeling that we could be forgiven, no matter what we have thought or done. Often, it was while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us. Our moral inventory had persuaded us that all-round forgiveness was desirable, but it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Therefore, our first practical move toward humility must consist of recognizing our deficiencies. No defect can be corrected until we clearly see what it is. You cannot fix what you don't acknowledge. But we shall have to do more than see. The objective look at ourselves we achieved in step 4 was, after all, only a look. All of us saw, for example, that we lacked honesty and tolerance, that we were beset at times by attacks of self-pity or delusions of perceived grandeur. But while this was a humiliating experience, it didn't necessarily mean that we had yet acquired much actual humility. A lot of people confuse humility with humiliation, and that is just simply not true. Humility means being right-sized. You are not the greatest thing walking. You are also not the worst person that ever lived. Somewhere in the middle of that is who we all are. I've said it before. If you ask some people, they will tell you, I'm awesome. You ask somebody else, they'll tell you I'm a raging herpy bitch. And they're both right. Both right, depending on their experience with me. Most people today will tell you that I'm great. I really do try to live by spiritual principles and keep myself right-sized. I've been known to road rage, but I no longer drag anybody out of their car. So, progress, not perfection. It is no good to be arrogant and think that there's nothing wrong with you. That's ridiculous. There's something wrong with everybody. We're human beings. It's also very egotistical and selfish and self-centered and self-seeking to spend all your time in woe is me, I'm so bad, I'm so awful, I'm hopeless, because that still is you focusing on you. And a lot of times we do that and it's actually a manipulation. Because we feel like, okay, well, if I'm really hard on myself, that will stop other people from being hard on me. And it actually puts other people in a position to go, oh, no, it's not that bad. Oh, no, I'm not that mad. Oh, no. And you take away from those people their right and their ability to have an honest conversation about how they're feeling about whatever it is that their experience with you is, because you're so hard on yourself that they feel like they can't say anything to you. So that in and of itself is a selfish manipulation. Though now recognized, our defects were still there. Something had to be done about them. And we soon found that we could not wish or will them away by ourselves. More realization and therefore more honesty about ourselves are the great gains we make under the influence of step 5. As we took inventory, we began to suspect how much trouble self-delusion had been causing us. This had brought a disturbing reflection. In all our lives, we had more or less fooled ourselves. How could we now be so sure that we weren't still self-deceived? How could we be certain that we had made a true catalog of our defects and had really admitted them even to ourselves? Because we were still bothered by fear, self-pity, and hurt feelings, it was probable We couldn't appraise ourselves fairly at all. Too much guilt and remorse might cause us to dramatize and exaggerate our shortcomings. Or anger and hurt pride might be the smokescreen under which we were hiding some of our defects while we blamed others for them. Possibly, too, we were still handicapped by many liabilities, great and small, we never knew we had. Hence, it was most evident that a solitary self-appraisal and the admission of our defects based upon that alone wouldn't be nearly enough. We'd have to have outside help if we were surely to know and admit the truth about ourselves. The help of God and another human being. Only by discussing ourselves, holding back nothing, only by being willing to take advice and accept direction, could we set foot on the road to straight thinking, solid honesty, and genuine humility. Yet many of us still hung back. We said, why can't God, as we understand him, tell us where we were astray? If the Creator gave us our lives in the first place, then he must know in every detail where we have since gone wrong. Why don't we make our admissions to him directly? Why do we need to bring anyone else into this? These are all excellent questions. And all questions I myself asked. I said to my sponsor, why do I need to even pray? God knows what's up. Why do I have to tell him anything? This stage, the difficulties of trying to deal rightly with God by ourselves are twofold. Though we may at first be startled to realize that God knows all about us, we are apt to get used to that quite quickly. Somehow, being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person. Until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden, our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. When we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and with God, and that we're not leaving nothing out. Because we can tell our sponsor all day long, oh yeah, I prayed about that, I talked to God about that, doesn't make it true. And that voiced confession, that voiced conversation with God, that out loud, depending on what your religious beliefs are, depending on what your higher power is, what that prayer life looks like, what that telling it, admitting it looks like. The second difficulty is this. What comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalization and wishful thinking. We can talk ourselves into or out of anything. At any given moment in time, when somebody's doing something, they are rationalizing and justifying in their mind why that's the right thing to do in that moment. Why I didn't have any other choice. This is what I had to do. And without another person as a sounding board, you will continue to believe your own bullshit. I don't know a nicer way to say that. The benefit of talking to another person is that we can get his direct comment and counsel on our situation. And there can be no doubt in our minds what that advice is. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well-intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it was all too plain that they were sorely mistaken? Lacking both practice and humility, they had deluded themselves and were able to justify the most errant nonsense on the ground that this was what God had told them. It is worth noting that people of very high spiritual development almost always insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Surely then, a novice ought not lay himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be by no means infallible, it is likely to be far more specific than any direct guidance we may receive while we are still so inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves. I believe that God speaks to me through other people. I don't have a red phone that's a direct line to God. He just goes, this is what I want you to do. I don't have a burning bush. I have to figure it out. Right? So this is what I know. I know that God would not want me to do anything that goes against spiritual principles. What spiritual principles have we learned and practiced thus far through the Alcoholics Anonymous program? The first is honesty. The second is trust. The third is faith. The fourth is courage. All those put together create integrity. What is integrity? Integrity is doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when nobody's looking, for no other reason than because it's the right thing to do. So if you are living your life thus far by those spiritual principles, if anything comes up that's going to make you go against those spiritual principles, you're going to be dishonest. You're going to be unfaithful. You're going to be untrustworthy. You're going to be scared and fearful. You're going to not do the right things as the right thing to do. You're going to only virtue signaling and I'm doing the right thing because people are looking. That's not what God wants of you. Whatever your God is, whatever your higher power is, I promise you, that's not what they want. I get a little riled up. Our next problem will be to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no other ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only has stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties perhaps like our own. This person may turn out to be one's sponsor, but not necessarily so. If you have developed a high confidence in him and his temperament and problems are close to your own, then such a choice will be good. Besides, your sponsor already has the advantage of knowing something about your case. By the time I got to my fifth step, my sponsor already knew everything anyway. Why are you letting somebody that you don't trust with your stuff help you figure out how to work your life, how to solve your problems without drugs and alcohol? If you have a sponsor, and for whatever reason, you decide that that's not working for you, that's not clicking for you, you're not getting what you need, they don't have what you want, it is okay to find a new sponsor. A sponsorship is not a marriage. You're not in it till death do you part. This is your recovery. The most important thing to a sponsor is that you will recover, whatever that looks like. And if I had a sponsee tell me they didn't want me to sponsor them for whatever reason, okay, great. Well, let's find you another sponsor and keep it pushing and keep you learning and keep you growing because that's what it's about. Perhaps, though, your relation to him is such that you would care to reveal only a part of your story. If this is the situation, by all means do so, for you ought to make a beginning as soon as you can. It may turn out, however, that you'll choose someone else for the more difficult and deeper revelations. This individual may be entirely outside of AA. For example, your clergyman or your doctor. For some of us, a complete stranger may prove the best bet. The real tests of the situation are your own willingness to confide in your full confidence in the one with whom you share your first accurate self-survey. Even when you've found the person, it frequently takes great resolutions to approach him or her. No one ought to say the AA program requires no willpower. Here is one place you may require all you've got. The chances are that you will be in for a very pleasant surprise. When your mission is carefully explained and it is seen by the recipient of your confidence how helpful he can really be, the conversation will start easily and will soon become eager. Before long, your listener may well tell a story or two about himself, which will place you even more at ease. Provided you hold back nothing, your sense of relief will mount from minute to minute. The dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place. And when humility and serenity are so combined, something else of great moment is apt to occur. Many an AA, once agnostic or atheist, tells us that it was during this stage of step 5 that he first actually felt the presence of God. And even those who had faith already often become conscious of God as they never were before. This feeling of being at one with God and man, this emerging from isolation through the open and honest sharing of our terrible burden of guilt, brings us to a resting place where we may prepare ourselves for the following steps toward a full and meaningful sobriety. And the next is step 6. So, what can I tell you about step 5 that I already have it? It is where I really started to feel the presence of my higher power and believe that this could work for me. I'll never forget sitting in my house with my big book, reading through the first 4 steps and really asking myself, did I do the first step 100%, which is the only step you have to do 100%. You have to admit that you're powerless over your addiction and your life is unmanageable because of it. That has to be 100%. Everything else, listen, to the best of your ability. When I sat down and I did that and I was all by myself, I was in my house, I was reading my book, and I was praying about it and I was thinking about it, I cannot exactly put into words the feeling that I experienced, but when I tell you I felt the hand of God, that's what it was. Other people might have different experiences. That's my experience. And I wish that for everybody. I wish everybody could feel that. I really do. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it to somebody that needs it. Go to starvethedemon.com, buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, buy me a coffee. Love everybody. Good, let God sort them out. And keep coming back, because I am going to keep coming back. Bye, guys. Mwah.